Hey everyone! Today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating and terrifying versions of Godzilla ever created, Shin Godzilla. But here's the big question. Is Shin Godzilla part of the Monsterverse? And if not, could he ever be? Buckle up, because we're about to explore everything there is to know about this nightmarish incarnation of the King of the Monsters, from his origins to his abilities, and whether he could stand toe-to-toe with the titans of the Monsterverse. This is going to be a long one, so grab some snacks, sit back, and let's get into it. First things first, what exactly is Shin Godzilla? For those who might not know, Shin Godzilla, also known as Godzilla Resurgence, is a 2016 Japanese film directed by Hideaki Anno and Shinji Higuchi. This movie was a reboot of the Godzilla franchise, bringing the iconic kaiju back to his roots as a terrifying force of nature, rather than a heroic or anti-heroic figure like in some other films. This version is not just a monster, it is a grotesque, ever-evolving abomination born of radioactive contamination and designed to reflect the chaos of real-world disasters like the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear incident. Shin Godzilla, or Godzilla Resurgence, as it's sometimes known in the West, is less a kaiju in the traditional sense and more a living disaster, an uncontrollable and unknowable organism whose very existence challenges the boundaries of life and science. Shin Godzilla is unique because it completely reimagines Godzilla's design, origin, and abilities. This version is grotesque, constantly evolving, and represents a very different kind of threat compared to the Monsterverse's Godzilla. But before we compare them, let's break down Shin Godzilla's story. Shin Godzilla's design is radically different from any other version of the King of the Monsters. It begins life not as a giant dinosaur-like beast, but as an almost pathetic aquatic creature that washes up on shore. It then rapidly evolves in a matter of hours, changing form to adapt to its environment and threats. By its final form, Shin Godzilla is a nightmarish behemoth. Tall, stiff, with glowing red patches across its body, asymmetrical features, and a jagged, almost corpse-like tail. Its atomic breath is among the most devastating of any Godzilla, starting as a dark smoke, then evolving into purple energy beams that can level entire cityscapes with surgical precision. It doesn't just breathe atomic fire, it becomes a weapon of mass destruction in every sense of the term. In the 2016 film, Shin Godzilla emerges from Tokyo Bay after an unexplained disturbance in the ocean. At first, he appears as a bizarre, almost amphibious creature with tiny arms, bulging eyes, and a ghoulish appearance. This initial form, dubbed First Form by fans, is slow, seemingly helpless, and even bleeds heavily when attacked by the military. But Shin Godzilla's power lies not just in its physical abilities, but in its underlying themes. In the 2016 film, it is heavily implied that Shin Godzilla is capable of reproducing asexually and might evolve further if left unchecked. Its cells can survive extreme conditions, and in a chilling final scene, it is shown that humanoid creatures are beginning to sprout from its tail, suggesting that it could eventually evolve into an entirely new species or even conquer the planet by replacing humanity. Shin Godzilla represents mutation without limits, progress without ethics, and disaster without end. So the question becomes, what happens when such a being enters the Monsterverse? But here's where things get crazy. Shin Godzilla doesn't stay in this form for long. After being injured, he rapidly evolves into a more familiar but still horrifying version of himself, growing larger, more powerful, and gaining his signature atomic breath. This evolution isn't just for show, it's a core part of his biology. Shin Godzilla is a constantly mutating organism, adapting to threats in real time. The film suggests that Shin Godzilla was created due to nuclear contamination, much like the original 1954 Godzilla, but with a modern, almost Lovecraftian twist. He's not just a dinosaur awakened by radiation, he's a living, evolving nightmare born from humanity's carelessness. This ideology is entirely at odds with Shin Godzilla. Where the Monsterverse Godzilla is wise and seasoned, Shin is chaotic and newborn. Where the Monsterverse Godzilla works within the balance of nature, Shin Godzilla seeks to replace it. If the Monsterverse is about harmony, Shin Godzilla is about entropy. A meeting between the two would not simply be a battle of brawn, it would be a clash of philosophies, of biological fate versus ecological equilibrium. Now, let's talk about why Shin Godzilla is one of the most overpowered versions of the character ever. Unlike the Monsterverse Godzilla, who relies on brute strength, atomic breath, and centuries of combat experience, Shin Godzilla is a scientific horror. His abilities include Rapid evolution. He can adapt to any threat within minutes, growing new limbs, altering his physiology, and even developing new weapons mid-battle. Atomic breath. His signature weapon isn't just a heat ray, it's a hyper-destructive laser that can slice through skyscrapers like butter. And in his final form, he can fire it from his mouth, back, and even his tail. Thermal regulation. Shin Godzilla overheats after using his atomic breath, but he can purge his own body to cool down, shedding excess flesh and regenerating instantly. Asexual reproduction. In one of the most disturbing reveals, the film hints that Shin Godzilla could spawn smaller creatures from his tail, implying he could reproduce and overrun the planet if left unchecked. This makes him not just a city-destroying monster, but an existential threat to all life on Earth. As Shin Godzilla marches inland, growing and evolving with each hour, other titans begin to react. Some, sensing an unnatural threat, flee or go dormant. Others, more aggressive, try to challenge Shin, only to be obliterated by its atomic breath or outpaced by its rapid adaptations. Eventually, this unprecedented disturbance draws the attention of Godzilla himself. Sensing a threat to the planet's balance, Godzilla rises from the depths, as he always does, to confront the interloper. Now, the million-dollar question. Is Shin Godzilla part of the Monsterverse? The short answer, no. Shin Godzilla exists in his own standalone continuity, separate from Legendary's Monsterverse, which includes Godzilla, 2014, Kong, Skull Island, Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong. But why isn't he in the Monsterverse? Well, for starters, Shin Godzilla is owned by Toho, the original creators of Godzilla. Legendary Pictures licenses Godzilla for the Monsterverse, but Shin Godzilla's design and lore are tied to Toho's distinct vision. The Monsterverse Godzilla is more of a traditional, heroic titan, while Shin Godzilla is a body horror allegory for nuclear disaster. However, as the battle wages on, something more terrifying could happen. Shin Godzilla might begin to adapt specifically to Godzilla's attacks, evolving to withstand atomic energy, to match Godzilla's strength, and perhaps even to replicate his abilities. This could force Godzilla to make a terrible choice: destroy Shin at the cost of immense collateral damage, or retreat and risk Shin Godzilla's unchecked evolution. In this moment, the Monsterverse Godzilla's character would be tested more than ever. Does he stay and fight a hopeless battle? Or does he recognize the greater good in calling upon humanity's help? That said, could Shin Godzilla ever appear in the Monsterverse? It's unlikely, but not impossible. Toho and Legendary have collaborated before, and if they ever wanted to introduce a Godzilla variant as a villain, Shin Godzilla would be the ultimate threat. Imagine him evolving to fight King Ghidorah, or even Mechagodzilla. That would be insane. Alright, time for the ultimate showdown: Shin Godzilla versus Monsterverse Godzilla. Who would actually win in a fight? On one hand, Monsterverse Godzilla is bigger, stronger, and more experienced. He's taken down titans like Ghidorah and Kong, and his atomic breath is devastating. But Shin Godzilla? He's a wild card. His rapid evolution means he could adapt to Godzilla's attacks mid-fight. If Monsterverse Godzilla hits him with atomic breath, Shin Godzilla might just develop a resistance, or worse, evolve a counterattack. And who knows? Maybe one day, we'll see a version of Shin Godzilla in a future Monsterverse film. Introducing Shin Godzilla into the Monsterverse would be a bold, genre-defying move. It would shake the foundations of the established lore, elevate the philosophical stakes, and push the characters, both human and Titan, to their absolute limits. Whether as an enemy, a force of nature, or a herald of something far worse, Shin Godzilla would be unforgettable. And in a universe already filled with gods and monsters, it might just be the most terrifying creature of all. Until then, he remains one of the most unique and terrifying interpretations of the King of the Monsters. So, what do you think? Should Shin Godzilla join the Monsterverse? Or is he better off in his own universe? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. The real danger is Shin Godzilla's potential to reproduce. If he starts spawning mini-Godzillas, it's game over. Monsterverse Godzilla is powerful, but could he handle an army of evolving mutants? It's a terrifying thought. Ultimately, this fight would come down to whether Monsterverse Godzilla could destroy Shin Godzilla before he evolves past the point of being stoppable. If Shin reaches his final form, it might be an unwinnable battle. Even though Shin Godzilla isn't in the Monsterverse, his impact on the franchise is undeniable. He brought Godzilla back to his horror roots, delivering one of the most unsettling and thought-provoking versions of the character ever. The film's political satire, haunting design, and relentless tone make it a standout in the series.